In a world that expects you to be demure and dutiful, that tiny blaze of curiosity in your gaze is a silent rebellion. You dress in layers of soft linen and warm wool, the stiff laces of your bodice biting into your ribs with every breath. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance, Italy, women's lives were measured in silks and shadows. Beauty was power, but knowledge, that was a risk. You remember the hushed conversations in the convent school, the whispers of the older girls who said that too much thinking would turn your hair gray and your heart sour. You smile at the thought now, but deep down, you know there's a sliver of fear in every joke. Because the world outside this cold stone room doesn't reward a woman who asks questions. It punishes her. A small joke drifts through your thoughts. Imagine trying to explain to a modern friend that you're risking everything just to read a book or question a line of Latin poetry. Relax, they'd say. It's just a hobby. But in this world, it's a statement. It's a challenge. Historians still argue whether female scholars were truly seen as dangerous or merely as oddities, curiosities to be admired from afar, like the rare flowers in the gardens of the Medicis. You think it doesn't really matter, because here, tonight, your curiosity is enough to set the whole world whispering. You slip out of the room and into the dim corridor, the early morning air thick with the scent of rosemary and beeswax. You walk quickly, your eyes downcast, every footstep an act of quiet defiance. The girl who passes you on the stairs pretends not to see you, but you know she does. You see it in the slight widening of her eyes, the quick flash of something like admiration, or maybe pity. You clutch the small leather-bound book to your chest as if it's a shield. In a way, it is. The book is a collection of poems borrowed from a merchant's wife who shares your hunger for words. She said she was too old to care about the scandal it might bring. But you're still young enough to be ruined by it. You find a quiet alcove near the kitchens, the warmth of the banked fire wrapping around you like a cloak. The light is soft here, and you open the book slowly, savoring the feel of the vellum pages beneath your fingertips. The poems speak of love and loss, of faith and doubt. You mouth the words silently, each syllable a small act of rebellion, each line a promise to yourself that you won't stop asking questions. A fringe tidbit. Some women in your position resorted to writing their own poetry in secret, tucking the verses away, like prayers, in the pages of their psalters. You wonder if you'll be brave enough to write your own one day, or if you'll spend your life reading the words of men who never imagined a woman like you. The morning passes in quiet devotion, the poems a balm against the weight of the world outside. You let the words seep into you, the verses soft and gentle as the first rays of sun that warm your cold skin. You close the book with a sigh, the warmth of the kitchen fire fading as you stand. You smooth your skirts, the stiff linen biting at your waist, and you know that curiosity will always be both your burden and your blessing. The girl who catches your eye as you leave the alcove knows it too. Her gaze lingers on the small book in your hand, and you see the same quiet hunger mirrored in her expression. You walk back into the cold, your breath fogging in the morning light. The book is hidden now, tucked safely away, but the words are yours. And for today, at least, that's enough. You walk through the bustling courtyard, the air alive with the clang of blacksmiths' hammers and the sweet scent of baking bread. But even here, surrounded by the sounds of daily life, you know that your thoughts mark you as different. You keep your head down, your veil pulled close, and you try to remember what the world expects of you. A quiet voice, a gentle smile, and no sign of the books you've read in the candlelit hours of the night. The mainstream fact is that a woman's education in the Renaissance was carefully curated, enough to make her a good wife or an able hostess, but never enough to let her outshine the men around her. You know that better than anyone. So you learn to blend in, to smile politely when someone quotes Virgil at the dinner table, to laugh softly even when the joke doesn't make sense. Your mind, sharp as a silver needle, is something you keep hidden like a precious stone. A small joke flickers in your thoughts. Imagine telling a modern friend that you're playing the part of a perfect docile lady just to keep from being banished to a convent. They'd laugh, maybe, but you know the stakes are no laughing matter. One slip, one wrong word, and everything you've worked so hard to learn could be snatched away. You pause by the fountain, the water glinting in the pale morning light. A few girls gather nearby, their laughter as bright as the silver pins in their hair. You watch them carefully, noting the way they tilt their heads, the way they flutter their fans. It's a dance, you realize, and one you're expected to master if you want to survive. Historians still argue whether the rules of modesty and quiet deference were truly written by men alone, or if women themselves helped shape the script, each generation teaching the next how to survive within the tight confines of expectation. You suspect the truth is tangled, a mix of fear and pride, of whispered warnings and gentle lessons passed from mother to daughter. You find a corner of the courtyard where the ivy creeps up the warm stone, a small refuge where you can catch your breath. You lean back against the wall, the cool stone grounding you as you slip a small book from your sleeve. It's nothing more than a collection of herbal remedies, recipes for tinctures and teas. But to you, it's a quiet rebellion, a promise that there's more to learn than what the world would offer. A serving girl passes by, her eyes lingering for a moment on the book in your hands. You catch her gaze and offer a small, knowing smile. She nods in return, a silent acknowledgement that even in the smallest acts, like reading a book meant for a man's hand, there's power. You wonder if she, too, has a secret stash of poems or a scrap of Latin verse tucked away in a locked box beneath her bed. You wonder if her hunger to know is as fierce as yours, if she dreams of more than the endless churn of washing and mending. The bells in the tower chime the hour, a sharp sound that pulls you back to the world around you. You slip the book away, adjusting your veil and smoothing your skirts. The mask of deference slides back into place, the small, practiced smile returning to your lips. You walk through the courtyard again, head high and gaze soft. To anyone watching, you're just another quiet girl, moving through the rhythms of the day. But inside, the words of your secret book echo like a prayer, each syllable a small defiance against the silence the world demands. As you return to your room, the scent of rosemary still clinging to your hands, you pause at the threshold and take one last breath of the morning air. The sun is rising higher now, the day's duties pressing close. But you know that tonight, when the world sleeps, you'll return to your quiet studies, your hidden questions, and the small, fierce belief that knowledge is worth any price. The hush of the night wraps around you like a cloak as you slip quietly through the hall. The rushes beneath your feet, soft as whispers. In the flickering glow of a single candle, you find the door that leads to your secret meeting. It's a gathering of women who dare to read, to write, to question the world that tells them to stay silent. You open the door slowly, and a wave of warm air and soft laughter greets you. The room is small, the ceiling low, and the walls lined with wooden shelves stacked with books, some borrowed, some stolen, some copied by hand in the moonlight hours. In the center, a table is cluttered with parchment and half-drained ink pots, the scent of beeswax and rosemary hanging heavy in the air. The mainstream fact is that women in Renaissance Italy found ways to gather in secret, forming quiet circles of shared learning. Here, in this hidden room, you're not just a daughter or a wife in waiting. You're a scholar, a thinker, a dreamer, and you're not alone. A small joke flickers in your thoughts. If only your mother could see you now, hunched over a battered book, your hair unpinned and your face lit with a hungry light. She'd probably faint. Or worse, she'd join you. You settle at the table, your fingers brushing the edge of a manuscript older than your grandmother's grandmother. The girl beside you, a baker's daughter with quick hands and a quicker mind, leans close and points to a line in the text. You read together in hushed voices, the Latin syllables clumsy on your tongue but thrilling in your heart. Historians still argue whether these gatherings were acts of quiet rebellion or simply a way to pass the long candlelit nights. But here, you feel the pulse of something bigger, an unspoken promise that your minds are worth as much as any man's. The girl with the quick hands tells you about the herbalist who lives by the river, a woman who knows the secrets of every leaf and root. She says the herbalist will trade her knowledge for a loaf of bread or a verse of poetry. You smile at the thought. Knowledge bartered in the language of hunger and hope. You pass the hours in a quiet fever, your eyes straining in the dim light as you copy a passage from Ovid's Metamorphoses onto a scrap of parchment. Each letter is a tiny act of defiance, each line a prayer that your thoughts will outlast the night. The candle gutters, wax dripping like slow tears, but you keep writing. A fringe tidbit. Some women in your time would slip these scraps of text into the linings of their bodices, carrying the words close to their hearts like a talisman. You wonder if the girl beside you has a secret verse stitched beneath her chemise, a line of poetry pressed against her skin. The door creaks open, and for a moment, your heart leaps in your chest. But it's only another girl, her cheeks flushed from the cold night air. She carries a bundle of papers wrapped in an old shawl. Poems, she says, written by a woman in Venice who signs her name only as L. You read the verses aloud, your voice soft and steady. The words are sharp as a blade and sweet as honey, the kind of poetry that feels like a promise. The room holds its breath. The only sound, the quiet crackle of the fire. Historians still argue whether these poems ever reached beyond the small, secret circles where they were born. But here, in this moment, you know they're enough. Because tonight, you're part of a lineage that stretches back through time. Women who refuse to be silent. Women who make their own histories one word at a time. The candle sputters, the wax nearly gone. You stand slowly, the night pressing close around you. You slip the scrap of parchment into your sleeve, your fingers lingering on the soft curve of the letters. The girl beside you smiles, a brief flash of warmth in the shadowed room, and you know you'll see her here again. You step back into the corridor, the door closing softly behind you. The world outside is still dark, the sky above you scattered with stars. You walk quickly, your steps light, your mind alive with the words you've read and the quiet power of women who dare to think. And you know that tomorrow and every night after, you'll come back. Because knowledge is a fire that never really goes out. The next morning arrives like a rude guest, slamming the door open with the cold light of dawn and the clatter of servants' footsteps on stone. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, the memory of last night's whispered verses still warm in your mind. But out here, in the bright air of the courtyard, you wear the mask of modesty and good sense, a face that says, I have no secrets, even when you know the truth. Your steps lead you to the estate's chapel, where the heavy scent of incense curls around the flickering candles. You slip into a back pew, your eyes cast down, your hands folded in a prayer that is half forgotten ritual and half a shield. The mainstream fact is that for women in Renaissance Italy, piety was as much a performance as it was a belief. You must be seen to be devout, your every breath a quiet hymn to virtue and restraint. A small joke flickers in your thoughts. If only the priests knew how many prayers you've offered not to saints, but to the fragile gods of ink and parchment. You stifle a smile, your lips softening into the careful curve expected of a young woman at prayer. The priest's voice rises in the hush, the Latin words echoing off the cold stone walls. You follow the rhythm of the chant, but your mind drifts back to the small, secret gatherings in the night. You remember the scent of rosemary and the rustle of veils, the thrill of hearing your own voice speak words you were never meant to know. Historians still argue whether the church itself was the harshest guardian of women's silence or the quiet ally of those who found faith in the margins of the sacred text. You suspect it's both, because even here, in the chapel's hush, you can feel the weight of centuries pressing down, an expectation that you'll stay small and quiet, your mind as neatly bound as your hair. The service ends, and you slip out with the other women, your head bowed and your veil a soft curtain that hides the fierce glint in your eyes. Outside, the world is a flurry of color and sound. Merchants calling their wares in the square, children darting between carts piled high with apples and salted fish. You walk carefully, your skirts sweeping over the cobbles, each step a careful performance. The girl from last night's gathering passes you in the crowd, her eyes meeting yours for a fleeting moment. She wears the same modest cloak, the same demure smile, but you know. You know she carries the same burning questions, the same quiet defiance, tucked beneath her plain linen sleeves. A merchant calls out to you, offering sweet cakes dusted with honey and cinnamon. Your stomach growls, but you shake your head politely and move on. Hunger has become an old friend, a constant reminder that even your body is a battleground. The world expects you to be small in every way, to shrink your voice, your waist, your appetite for more than bread. You find your way to the edge of the market square, where the walls of a grand house rise up in creamy stone and delicate ironwork. This is where the patrons live, the men and women whose money buys your books and your safety, at least for now. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, knowledge often needed a patron's purse to survive. Even the brightest mind could starve without the golden coins of a wealthy benefactor. You pause, your gaze drifting to the open window above, where a woman in a rich russet gown leans out to watch the crowd. She sees you and nods, a small gesture, but one that says, I know who you are, and I see what you're trying to do. You bow your head, the weight of gratitude and caution twisting in your chest. A fringe tidbit. Some patrons kept their own libraries of forbidden texts, locked behind iron-banded doors and guarded by servants sworn to silence. You've heard whispers of such places, rooms lined with ancient books and ink-smeared secrets, where the price of admission is loyalty and the promise of discretion. You make your way to the back entrance, the servant's door that smells of baking bread and soap. The girl at the door greets you with a smile, her fingers quick as she tucks a stray wisp of hair back beneath her linen cap. She knows why you're here, even if she doesn't ask. She knows that in this house of wealth and whispered scandal, you're just another piece of the puzzle. A quiet girl with bright eyes and a mind that won't be still. You slip inside, the warmth of the kitchen washing over you in a wave of rosemary and smoke. The cook bustles at the hearth, her face red and her hands dusted with flour. She doesn't see you. She doesn't need to. You're just another shadow in a house that runs on secrets. You climb the narrow stairs to the library, your heart beating in time with the creak of the wooden steps. The room is small, the air heavy with the scent of leather and old wood. The patron waits for you there, her fingers tapping gently on the arm of a carved chair. She's dressed in deep teal today, her hair pinned in loops of silver and pearl. She looks up as you enter, and her smile is both kind and calculating. She doesn't waste time on pleasantries. "Show me what you've been working on," she says, her voice low and steady. You kneel by the table, your fingers trembling just slightly as you lay out your careful notes. Translations of ancient poems, a few fragile pages of copied anatomy drawings. She leans forward, her eyes sharp, and you know that this is the real test. Here, in this quiet room, you're not just a girl. You're a scholar, one who must prove herself worthy of every borrowed word. Historians still argue whether patrons like her were champions of knowledge or gatekeepers of the same old chains. You think it's both, because her approval means another day of learning, another night of stolen hours by candlelight. But her disappointment, that would be the end of your small, fragile dream. She reads your notes in silence, her lips moving softly as she traces the lines of your careful script. When she looks up, her eyes glint with something you can't quite name. Pride, maybe, or just the quiet thrill of seeing someone else's mind in bloom. "Good," she says finally. "You have a gift. Don't waste it." You bow your head, your pulse a drumbeat in your throat. You know she's not giving you permission? Not really. She's giving you a chance. A small, shining window in a world that's quick to slam them shut. And you know you'll take it, every scrap and shard of it, until there's nothing left. You leave the library with your notes carefully folded, your breath quick, and your heart heavy. The world outside the window is still bright. The noise of the market, like the laughter of a world that doesn't care how hard you've worked to carve out this sliver of space for yourself. But you care. And tonight, when the candle burns low and the world sleeps, you'll return to your secret pages and your quiet questions. Because you know that in a world that expects so little of you, every word you write is an act of quiet defiance, and you're not done yet. You step back into the cold air of the courtyard, your breath misting in the early light, your mind still humming with the weight of the patron's approval. The sun is just cresting the tiled rooftops, and for a moment, it feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. You pull your cloak tighter, your fingers stiff with the chill, and make your way to the small garden hidden behind the kitchen. Here, among the rosemary bushes and tangled vines of bitter oranges, you find a quiet moment to breathe. The garden is your refuge, a place where the air smells of earth and the low murmur of bees. You sit on the worn stone bench, your notes folded safely in your sleeve, and close your eyes. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, gardens were more than just places of beauty. They were symbols of control, carefully tended order in a world that could be so cruelly chaotic. For noble women, they were places to walk, to gossip, and sometimes, if you were brave, to think. A small joke flickers in your mind. Imagine telling someone that your greatest freedom is found in a garden patch of herbs and bees. They'd laugh maybe, but here, it feels like the only place in the world where you can breathe without fear. You let your fingers brush the leaves of a rosemary bush, the scent sharp and comforting. In this garden, you're not just a daughter or a scholar's shadow. You're yourself, a girl with too many questions and no one to answer them but the rustling of the leaves. Historians still argue whether gardens like these were truly sanctuaries for women or just another gilded cage. You think it doesn't matter, because here, in the hush of the morning, the garden feels like a promise that the world can be gentle, if only for a breath. A serving girl steps into the garden, her arms full of linens for the washing. She pauses when she sees you, her eyes darting to the folded papers peeking from your sleeve. She doesn't ask. She knows the rules of this quiet conspiracy. She only nods, her fingers tightening around the bundle of sheets, and then she's gone again, leaving you alone with the bees and your thoughts. You open your notes, careful not to let the pages flutter in the breeze. The words you copied last night seem to glow in the soft morning light. Each line is a small defiance, a breath of freedom caught on paper. You read them again, your lips moving silently, and feel the faint warmth of pride in your chest. A fringe tidbit. Some women of your time believed that the very act of writing could heal the soul, that the ink and the parchment were as much a balm as any doctor's draft. You're not sure if it's true, but this morning, you feel lighter with every word you trace. You close your notes and tuck them back into your sleeve as footsteps approach. It's the steward, his face carved from stern lines and suspicion. He pauses by the gate, his gaze sharp as he surveys the garden. You drop your eyes, your hands folded politely, your heart thumping like a trapped bird. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. In his silence is 1,000 reminders of what's expected of you. Obedience, quiet, an unthinking smile. You offer him a shallow curtsy and slip past him, your head down, your mind still fiercely awake. You return to the main hall, where the household is already stirring with the noise of a new day. The clink of pottery and the low murmur of servants at work fill the air. You move carefully, your steps measured, your veil pulled close. The world sees what it wants to see. A demure young woman, her thoughts as soft as her voice. But you know the truth. You know that behind your eyes, there's a library of questions, a garden of secret dreams. And you know that tonight, when the candles burn low and the shadows grow long, you'll feed that garden again. The rest of the day passes in small, quiet tasks. You help in the still room, where the air is thick with the scent of dried lavender and rose petals. You sort herbs and measure powders, your fingers nimble and your ears open to the gossip that drifts like perfume through the room. A gentle irony makes you smile. here you are, measuring fennel seeds and weighing lavender buds, while your mind is busy with Plato and Ptolemy. The mistress of the house says you have a light hand with the scales, and you smile sweetly, though you know your real skill is in balancing questions no one dares to ask. Historians still argue whether these household tasks were meant to keep women busy or to break their spirits. You suspect it's both, because in the careful folding of linens and the precise mixing of oils, there's a quiet kind of power, a power that says, I can do this, and I can do more. As the afternoon light slants through the high windows, you slip away to the small scriptorium off the main hall. It's a dusty, forgotten room, its shelves lined with ledgers and old sermons. No one comes here unless they have to, and that makes it perfect for you. You kneel by the low table, the worn wood cool against your skin, and pull your notes from your sleeve. The pages flutter in the dim light, the ink catching the glow of the single candle you've lit. You write quickly, your hand sure and steady. The words spill out like water, your thoughts flowing faster than you can catch them. A soft joke drifts through your thoughts. If anyone asked, you'd say you were just copying recipes or prayers. But these words, they're yours. They're questions and dreams, and the soft, bright flame of your mind refusing to be snuffed out. You write until your hand aches and your eyes blur, until the shadows grow long and the light outside fades to twilight. You close your notes with a sigh, the quiet satisfaction of another page filled. As you slip out of the scriptorium, your mind hums with the echo of your own words. You know that tomorrow the world will ask you to be small again, to be silent, to be gentle. But tonight, you've given your thoughts wings. And that, you think, is worth every risk. The night falls heavy and deep. The world outside your window, cloaked in velvet darkness. You light a single candle, its small flame a flickering promise against the hush of the sleeping household. You're alone, or as alone as a woman can ever be, in a world of creaking floorboards and whispered rumors. You lean close to the light, the warm glow turning your breath to shadows on the cool glass of the window pane. You open the small bundle of books you've hidden beneath your pillow, fragile pages that smell of leather and dust, words that feel like stolen treasures in your hands. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance, Italy, books were a currency more precious than gold, and for a woman, they were both a promise and a peril. You run your fingers over the faded letters, your touch light as if you fear to wake the spirits of the scholars who wrote them centuries ago. You read slowly, savoring every word, every idea that blooms like a secret garden in the darkness. A small joke drifts through your thoughts. Imagine explaining to your modern friends that you're risking ruin just to read a book in bed. Just buy an e-reader, they'd laugh. But here, each page is a quiet rebellion, a soft song of resistance against a world that would rather see you silent. Historians still argue whether women like you were driven by ambition or by desperation, a hunger for knowledge that couldn't be sated by marriage or motherhood alone. You think it's both, because here, in the hush of your small room, you feel that hunger burning in your bones, a fire that no dowry or household duty could ever quench. You pause to rest your eyes, the candlelight dancing in the silver rivets of your hair comb. You remember the girl in the kitchen, her hands dusted with flour and her eyes bright with unspoken questions. You wonder if she, too, has a small bundle of pages tucked away in the dark corners of her world. You read on, your lips moving silently with the rhythm of the Latin phrases. The words wrap around you like a cloak, warm and comforting, even as they challenge everything you've been taught to believe. The philosophers write of reason and virtue, of questions that have no easy answers, and you feel your mind stretch and bend with each new idea. A fringe tidbit. Some women in your time believed that learning could be dangerous to the soul, that too much knowledge could twist your thoughts and poison your heart. You smile at the thought, though you can't deny there's a dark allure in the idea. Because every word you read tonight feels like a small sin, a sweet indulgence in a world that would rather see you stitching a hem than stitching thoughts together on a page. You pause to warm your fingers on the soft glow of the candle. The wax pools in small rivers down the brass holder, and you watch it drip, each drop a slow heartbeat in the hush of the night. You think of the scholars whose names you copy in your notes, men who sat in echoing halls of marble, their voices heavy with authority. You wonder if they ever thought of women like you, bent over a candle in the dark, tracing their words like a prayer. Historians still argue whether those men would have welcomed you into their circles, or if they'd have turned you away with a kind smile and a sharper insult. You think it doesn't matter, because tonight, their words are yours. Tonight, the questions belong to you. A gust of wind rattles the shutters, the chill seeping through the thin cracks in the wall. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, your breath quickening as you read on. The candle flickers, the flame bowing low, and for a moment, you wonder if it will gutter out and leave you in the dark. But it steadies, and you read on. The words blur for a moment, your eyes aching from the long hours, but you force yourself to keep going. You think of the girl who taught you your letters in the convent school, her voice soft and patient as she traced each letter on your small hand. You think of her and wonder if she would be proud of you tonight. The world outside is still. The only sounds the faint sigh of the wind and the soft crackle of the candle. You close the book slowly, your hand lingering on the rough leather cover, and let the hush settle around you like a warm blanket. You know that tomorrow, the world will call you back to your place, your hands busy with sewing, your voice soft and sweet. But tonight, you are a scholar in the candlelight, your mind alive with questions and dreams. And even if the world never sees the fire behind your quiet eyes, you know it's there. You blow out the candle, the smoke rising in a thin spiral to the ceiling. You slip the book back beneath your pillow, its weight a quiet promise against your skin. You close your eyes, the taste of the words still sweet on your tongue, and let the darkness cradle you like a secret. Tomorrow, the questions will wait for you again, and you'll be ready. The morning breaks cold and bright, the world outside your window washed in the pale glow of dawn. You rise slowly, your limbs stiff from hours spent hunched over parchment, but your mind is sharp, alive with the echoes of the words you read by candlelight. You dress with care, your fingers deft as you tie the laces of your bodice and smooth the soft linen of your sleeves. The mirror catches your reflection, a young woman with clear eyes and a quiet fire in her gaze. You leave your small room, stepping carefully through the corridors of the house. The world is already stirring, servants bustling with trays of bread and bowls of sweet wine, the heavy scent of roasted chestnuts drifting from the kitchens. You keep your head down, your steps light, and you let the noise of the morning wash over you like a familiar song. The mainstream fact is that Renaissance Italy was a world of constant chatter, markets alive with merchants' cries, ballrooms buzzing with laughter and gossip. But for women like you, words could be both a gift and a weapon. One careless comment, one slip of the tongue, and your quiet studies could become a scandal that would follow you like a shadow. A small joke flickers in your thoughts. Imagine trying to explain to a modern friend that even your questions are dangerous, that a single word out of place could ruin everything. They'd smile and say, "Oh, you worry too much?" But you know the truth. In this world, words have weight, and yours are double-edged. You find your way to the library, the door heavy beneath your hand. You push it open and step into the cool hush of the room. Sunlight slants through the high windows, dust motes dancing in the pale beams like tiny spirits. You breathe in the scent of old leather and ink, the smell of 1,000 quiet battles, fought and won in the margins of ancient books. You move to the table, your fingers trailing over the worn wood. The girl from the kitchen is already there, her head bent low over a battered manuscript. She looks up when she sees you, her eyes bright with the same fierce curiosity that keeps you awake at night. You share a small smile, an unspoken promise that here, at least, you can be honest. Historians still argue whether women like you truly belonged in these spaces, or if you were just guests, invited for a moment, then politely shown the door. You think it's both, because every time you open a book, you carve out a small corner of the world that is yours alone. You settle into a chair beside her, your hands trembling just slightly as you untie the soft cord around your small bundle of notes. The girl leans close, her breath warm against your cheek as you whisper translations and half-formed ideas. The words come slowly at first, but soon they spill out in a quiet flood. Questions about philosophy and medicine, stories of ancient queens and forgotten empresses. A fringe tidbit. Some scholars say that women's voices were never meant to be part of this conversation, that your thoughts are nothing more than echoes in a hall of marble statues. But here, with the girl beside you and the books open before you, you feel those echoes become something real, something that can't be silenced by the soft hush of a courtly dance or the sweet lilt of a song. You work in near silence, your quill scratching softly on the parchment as you copy a line from a book of herbal remedies. The ink smudges on your fingers, the faint tang of iron and vinegar lingering in the air. You pause to flex your hand, the small ache a quiet reminder of how hard you fought for this moment. The girl glances at you, her lips quirking in a small smile. Your hand is covered in ink, she whispers, her voice a gentle tease. You laugh softly, a sound that feels like a secret shared between two co-conspirators. You lean back in your chair, the words still humming in your mind. The sun climbs higher, the light shifting across the table, and you know that soon the rest of the house will come alive with noise and duty. But for now, the library is yours, a small, perfect island in a sea of expectations. Historians still argue whether these quiet hours of study were acts of rebellion or just small moments of borrowed peace. You think it's both, because every time you dip your quill into the inkwell, every time you trace the soft curve of a letter on the page, you're writing a quiet testament to the fact that your mind is yours and no one else's. The bell in the courtyard tolls the hour, and you gather your notes, careful not to smudge the fresh ink. The girl helps you fold the pages, her fingers quick and sure. You slip them into the small leather pouch you keep hidden at your waist. The weight of them, a quiet promise that your questions won't end here. You leave the library together, your steps light and your heart steady. The world outside the door is bright and loud, the air filled with the scent of baked bread and the soft rustle of silks. But in your mind, the questions still burn bright, a small, fierce flame that no one can snuff out. You part ways at the corridor, a small nod between you and the girl, a promise to return, to keep asking, to keep learning. You walk on alone, your hand resting lightly on the pouch at your waist, and you know that tonight, when the candles burn low, you'll return to your small, quiet rebellion, because you're not done yet, not by a long shot. You find yourself outside the convent walls by late afternoon, the air fragrant with the scent of olive groves and the quiet chant of distant nuns drifting on the breeze. The walls of the convent are high and white, a world apart from the noise and bustle of the city. You walk slowly, your feet crunching on gravel, the sun warm on your shoulders. You know that within these walls there is another kind of world, one where women learn in whispers and in song, even if no one outside thinks it matters. The mainstream fact is that Renaissance convents were more than places of prayer. For many women, they were places of learning too, a rare chance to read, to write, to shape a mind unbent by the expectations of marriage and motherhood. You've heard the rumors of the sisters who debate philosophy by candlelight, who copy the works of Aristotle and Avicenna with patient care. You want to see if those whispers are true. A small joke drifts through your mind. Imagine telling someone today that you've come to a convent to learn more than prayers. They'd smile maybe, or roll their eyes. But here, behind these walls, there's something deeper, something that feels like hope. You step into the cool shade of the cloister, your fingers brushing the worn stone as you walk. The silence is rich, filled with the faint scent of lavender and the rustle of linen habits. A young nun crosses your path, her eyes bright with curiosity as she studies the small bundle of notes you carry. She doesn't ask what they are. She only nods, a small flicker of understanding in her gaze. Historians still argue whether these convents were true sanctuaries for women's minds, or just another gilded cage. You suspect it's both, because in the hush of the convent chapel, with the sunlight slanting through the colored glass and the air alive with song, you feel both safe and watched. A sister leads you down a narrow hallway, her voice low as she speaks of the scriptorium, a small, hidden room where the sisters copy texts by hand. She pauses at the door, her fingers resting lightly on the carved wood. You may watch, but you must not speak, she says softly. You nod, your throat tight with the weight of everything you've brought with you today. Your questions, your doubts, your quiet hunger to know more. The room is small and cool, the walls lined with shelves of parchment and ink pots. The sisters sit in a quiet circle, their quills moving in steady rhythm as they copy lines of poetry and scripture. The light is soft, filtered through the narrow windows, and the only sound is the gentle scratch of pen on paper. You stand in the doorway, your hands clasped before you, and watch the dance of ink and thought. The sisters' faces are calm, their brows furrowed in concentration, and you feel a flicker of envy for their quiet certainty. A fringe tidbit. Some believe that the act of copying sacred texts could cleanse the soul, each letter a small prayer, each line a testament to faith. You wonder if it's true, or if it's just another story women tell themselves to keep going. One sister looks up, her eyes meeting yours with a quiet challenge. She nods once, and then returns to her work, her quill moving like a whisper across the page. You lean against the doorframe, your breath catching at the thought that even here, in the quiet of this hidden room, the questions never really end. You stay until the shadows grow long and the light of the day begins to fade. The sisters pack away their quills and parchment, their faces soft in the golden glow of the last sun. One of them pauses by your side as she leaves, her hand brushing yours for just a moment. You have the look of someone who sees too much, she says, her voice a gentle warning and a quiet blessing. You smile faintly, your heart a tight knot of gratitude and fear. Because she's right. You do see too much. You see the quiet power in these hidden halls, the soft strength of women who refuse to be forgotten. And you know that even if the world outside these walls never understands, you do. You leave the convent as the first stars prick the sky, your steps slow and steady. The world outside is loud again, the clatter of carts and the low hum of voices like a tide that never rests. But you walk with the memory of the sisters' quiet work in your mind, their patient hands and steady quills, a promise that even the smallest acts of learning can echo through the centuries. You pause at the edge of the square, the faint scent of rosemary still clinging to your sleeves. You think of the questions waiting for you at home, the books and the notes and the long hours by candlelight. And you know that tonight, when the world sleeps, you'll return to them with new eyes, eyes that have seen the power of women's words, even in the hush of a convent cell. Because in this world, every word you learn is a rebellion, and every question you dare to ask is a promise to yourself that you're not done yet. You return home as the last light of day fades, the sky streaked with rose and violet. Your fingers brush the rough stone of the walls as you climb the narrow stairs, each step a quiet reminder of the world you're stepping back into, a world that will greet you with small, polite smiles and the unspoken expectation that you'll never stray beyond its boundaries. Your room is just as you left it, the small bed tucked into the corner, the rough wooden table beneath the window, the thin curtain that does little to keep out the chill. You light a single candle, its soft glow pushing back the shadows that gather at the edges of the room. You sit at the table, your notes spread out before you, and you let the hush settle around you like a prayer. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, a woman's chamber was meant to be her world, a place of modesty, of quiet devotion, of gentle tasks that ask nothing of her mind. But for you, this room is something else. It's a sanctuary, a small stolen refuge where the questions that burn inside you can finally find voice. A small joke flickers in your thoughts. If your father could see you now, quill in hand and ink staining your fingers, he'd probably call for a priest to exorcise the dangerous thoughts you've smuggled home from the convent. You smile softly at the thought, though the humor is laced with something sharper, something that tastes like defiance. You lean over your notes, the candlelight turning the ink to molten black. You trace the lines you copied so carefully this morning, a passage on natural philosophy, a line of poetry that speaks of a woman's mind as a garden, wild and untamed, beautiful and dangerous. You let the words roll over your tongue in a silent litany, each syllable a small, secret vow. Historians still argue whether the women of your time truly understood the risk of what they were doing, or if they simply followed the flicker of curiosity without seeing the danger it cast in the corners of the room. You think it's both, because every word you read tonight feels like a double-edged sword, an invitation and a warning. The house is quiet around you, the hush broken only by the creak of floorboards and the soft sigh of the wind. You know the servants are asleep, the kitchen's dark and cold. You know the world outside your small window is still awake, the city a maze of torchlight and laughter and soft-footed danger. But here, in this small room, there's only you and the questions that won't leave you alone. You dip your quill into the inkwell, the faint scent of iron rising like a memory of old battles. You write slowly, carefully, the letters small and precise as you copy the words that feel like prayers. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that writing by moonlight gave the words a kind of magic, that the silver glow of the night blessed every stroke of the quill. You're not sure if it's true, but tonight, as the moon rises and bathes your desk in its soft light, you feel like you're touching something older and wiser than any priest's sermon. You pause to rest your hand, the ache in your fingers a gentle pain that reminds you of the weight of what you're doing. You think of the girl at the convent, her eyes bright with the same quiet hunger. You think of the sisters with their patient hands and their silent quills. You wonder if they ever feel the same ache, the same fierce joy that sings in your blood as the words flow onto the page. The candle flickers, the shadows dancing on the rough plaster of the walls. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the hush settle over you like a blessing. You think of the world that waits outside this room, of the feasts and the dances, the laughter and the bright silk gowns. You think of how small you're meant to be, how quiet, and then you think of the words beneath your fingers, and you know you'll never be that small again. Historians still argue whether these quiet hours of study were acts of rebellion or just small, hopeful breaths in a world that didn't want to listen. You think it doesn't matter, because tonight, in the hush of your small room, you're writing your own history, one line at a time. You lay down your quill and flex your fingers, the soft crack of your knuckles loud in the hush. You close your notes carefully, tucking them away in the small wooden box you keep beneath your bed. The box is a secret, a promise that no matter what the world says, your questions are yours to keep. You lie back on your narrow bed, the rough linen cool against your skin, and you let the moonlight wash over you. You know that tomorrow you'll wake to a world that expects you to be soft and quiet and small. But tonight, you've been something more. You close your eyes, the faint scent of ink and candle wax clinging to your hair, and you let sleep take you in its gentle hands. You dream of words, of voices that rise in the dark and echo in your mind like a chorus of quiet defiance. And you know, deep in your bones, that tomorrow you'll write again. You wake before dawn, the world outside your window still wrapped in the soft blue of early morning. Your breath clouds the cold air, and for a moment you lie still, listening to the quiet of the house around you, the distant clink of a milk jug in the kitchen, the soft sigh of the wind in the eaves. You rise slowly, your limbs stiff with sleep, but your mind already alive with the questions you tucked beneath your pillow the night before. You dress quickly, your fingers numb in the chill, the wool of your cloak rough against your skin. The morning air is sharp, bright with the promise of a new day. And you step outside, the cold biting at your cheeks as you walk to the small garden behind the house. The rosemary bushes are still silver with frost, the earth hard beneath your boots. You kneel, your hands buried in the cold soil, and let the hush of the dawn steady your racing thoughts. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, gardens were more than places of beauty. They were symbols of power and patience, carefully tended spaces where nature was coaxed and shaped to reflect the hand of the gardener. But you know that in the quiet of the garden, there's also a kind of freedom, a place where the rules of the world feel a little less heavy, where you can let your mind wander without fear of who might be listening. A small joke flickers in your mind. Imagine telling someone that you find your greatest peace kneeling in the dirt, your skirts gathered up and your hands raw with cold. They'd laugh, but you know that in the hush of the morning, you're closer to something true than you ever are in the silk-wrapped halls of the court. You pause, your fingers brushing the frost from a sprig of thyme, and you let your thoughts drift to the books waiting for you in your room, the poems you've half memorized, the questions you haven't yet learned how to ask. You know that today, like every day, you'll wear the mask the world expects, a soft voice, a modest smile. But here, in the quiet of the garden, you let yourself be something else. Historians still argue whether these moments of solitude were acts of quiet rebellion or just small breaths of peace stolen from a world that wanted to keep you busy, always busy. You think it's both, because here, in the cold air of the dawn, you're reminded that you're more than the roles you're meant to play. You stand slowly, your hands red with cold, and make your way back inside. The kitchen is warm, the air thick with the scent of bread and wood smoke. The serving girls move around you like water, their hands quick and sure, their voices low as they trade stories of market days and the gossip of the household. You move quietly among them, your head bowed, your lips curved in the polite smile they expect. But in your mind, the questions you woke with are still bright, still sharp. You take a small loaf of bread from the hearth, its crust warm beneath your fingers, and slip it into the pouch at your waist. A small, stolen comfort for the long hours ahead. You know that today will be full of the small tasks that make up a woman's life. Mending, washing, the quiet work that no one sees and everyone expects. But you also know that tonight, when the house is quiet and the moon is high, you'll return to the questions that won't leave you alone. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that the first bread of the morning held a kind of magic, a blessing of warmth and comfort that would carry you through the day. You smile at the thought, though you're not sure if it's true. Still, you slip the bread into your pocket like a promise. You spend the morning in the still room, your hands busy with the soft crackle of dried herbs and the slow drip of scented oils. The air is fragrant with rosemary and lavender, the soft music of mortar and pestle, a gentle counterpoint to the silence of your thoughts. You move carefully, your fingers sure and deft, but your mind is elsewhere, turning over the words you read last night, the questions that still echo in the quiet of your heart. Historians still argue whether the work of the still room was just another task to keep women busy, or if it was a quiet claim to knowledge, an art of healing and making that was as much a science as any man's study. You think it's both, because each measure of lavender, Each careful pinch of powdered rose feels like a small act of power, a way of saying, I know this, I own this. The day passes in a gentle blur of small tasks and quiet thoughts. You move from room to room, your eyes lowered, your hands folded, and no one sees the questions that flicker like candle flames behind your polite smile. But you know they're there, and that's enough. As the sun begins to sink, and the shadows stretch long across the courtyard, you slip away to your small room once more. You light the candle, the soft glow turning the rough plaster walls to gold, and you open your notes. The ink is dark and sure. The letters a quiet testament to everything you've claimed for yourself. You let the words wash over you, a soft tide of questions and hopes and quiet, fierce belief. And as you read, you know that tomorrow the world will ask you to be small again. But tonight, in the hush of your room, you're a scholar, a dreamer, a woman who knows the quiet power of her own mind. The evening comes soft and slow. The sky outside your window, painted in brushstrokes of lavender and gold. You watch the last light of the sun slip away, your fingers resting lightly on the windowsill. The world outside is full of the small, familiar noises of nightfall. The call of an owl, the soft murmur of a mother soothing a child to sleep. But in your room, there is only the quiet scratch of your quill and the soft rustle of parchment as you turn another page. You sit at your small table, the candlelight turning your face to warm bronze in the reflection of the window glass. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, the night was both a comfort and a danger, a time for whispered secrets and soft promises, but also a time for shadows that hid more than just the dark. You lean over your notes, your breath warm against the page, and you let the hush of the night wrap around you like a soft cloak. A small joke flickers through your mind. Imagine telling someone you're spending your evening with Aristotle and Avicenna, while everyone else is busy with feasts and dancing. They'd smile politely, but they'd never understand the thrill that comes with each line you copy, each word you claim as your own. You pause to rest your hand, your fingers smudged with ink, and let your gaze drift to the small shelf above your bed. It's filled with the little treasures you've gathered over the years. A pressed sprig of rosemary, a chipped cup from your grandmother's kitchen, a tiny wooden box that holds a lock of your mother's hair. Each one is a quiet testament to the woman you're becoming, a woman who sees the beauty in small things, who knows that even the tiniest fragment can hold a story. Historians still argue whether these small treasures, these keepsakes of a woman's life, were meant to comfort or to confine. You think it's both, because each one is a piece of your heart, a reminder of where you've been and what you're willing to fight for. You take a deep breath, the soft scent of beeswax and ink settling in your lungs, and turn back to your notes. The words flow slowly tonight, each line a careful dance between fear and hope. You write of the questions that keep you awake, of the shape of the stars and the soft curve of the earth, of the way a single word can change the course of a life. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that writing in the hours just before dawn gave the words a kind of magic, that the hush of the world was a blessing that would carry their thoughts farther than any spoken prayer. You're not sure if it's true, but tonight, as the moon rises and bathes your desk in silver, you feel like you're touching something older and wiser than any mortal hand. You pause to flex your fingers, the ache of long hours a sweet, familiar pain. You think of the girl who sits across from you in the library, her face lit with the same quiet hunger that drives you. You wonder if she's awake tonight too, her own candle burning low as she traces the same questions in the soft hush of her room. The candle wavers, the flame bowing low, and you lean close, your breath steady, your heart loud in the hush. You know that tomorrow the world will wake and ask you to put away these questions, to fold them up like linens and tuck them in a drawer no one will ever see. But tonight, the questions are yours. The words are yours. And for this small moment, that's enough. Historians still argue whether these hours of quiet study were acts of rebellion or just small sighs of longing in a world that never made room for a woman's mind. You think it doesn't matter, because tonight, as you write the last line and close your book, you know you've done something real, something that can't be measured in dowries or dinner parties. You stand slowly, the hush of the night pressing close around you, and slip the book back beneath your pillow. The weight of it is a comfort, a promise that even if the world never sees what you've written, it can't take it away from you. You blow out the candle, the last breath of the flame, a soft sigh in the dark. You lie back on your narrow bed, the scent of ink still clinging to your skin, and close your eyes. And as sleep takes you, you dream of questions, of words that dance like starlight, of thoughts that rise and rise until they brush the edge of the moon. Morning finds you at the window, your breath clouding the cold glass as you watch the world come alive. The courtyard below is already bustling. Maids with baskets of fresh bread, boys running errands with faces flushed from the chill. But here, in your small room, there is only the soft hush of your heartbeat and the echo of the questions you carried through the night. You wrap your cloak tighter, the wool rough against your skin, and step out into the brisk air. The sun is pale and thin, a small promise of warmth that doesn't quite reach the bones. You walk slowly, your fingers tucked into your sleeves, the memory of your midnight thoughts still warm in your chest. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, the city never really sleeps. The streets are a constant hum of life. Vendors calling out prices, the clatter of horses' hooves, the low murmur of gossip that drifts through the market like perfume. You weave through the crowd, your eyes lowered, your steps careful on the worn stones. A small joke flickers in your mind. Imagine telling someone that your greatest secret is a mind that won't be quiet. They'd smile, but they wouldn't understand the fierce joy that comes with every line you read, every question you dare to ask. You make your way to the market square, the air sharp with the scent of roasting chestnuts and the sweet tang of pressed olives. You pause to watch a boy turn a spit of meat over a small fire, the fat sizzling and the smoke curling in the cold air. The world here is loud and bright, full of color and motion, but you feel like a ghost, drifting through it all with your thoughts tucked safely away. Historians still argue whether the marketplace was a place of freedom for women or just another stage for quiet performances. Polite smiles and careful words that never quite say what you mean. You think it's both. Because here, in the noise and bustle, you're reminded that your voice is always half hidden, even when your mind is blazing. You stop at a stall where a woman sells small jars of honey, the golden light of the sun catching in the glass like liquid fire. She greets you with a smile, her hands busy as she measures out a small spoonful for you to taste. The sweetness blooms on your tongue, rich and wild. And for a moment, you're just another girl in the market, your thoughts as simple as the sweetness of the honey. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that honey carried the blessing of the sun, that each golden drop was a small piece of light captured in a jar. You smile at the thought, though you know that for you, the real sweetness is in the words you'll return to tonight. You slip away from the stall, the taste of honey lingering like a quiet promise, and make your way to the small bookshop tucked in the shadow of the old bell tower. The shop is dim and dusty, the shelves lined with volumes that smell of old paper and secrets. The bookseller greets you with a small bow, his eyes sharp and knowing beneath his heavy brows. You linger by the shelves, your fingers brushing the worn spines, each one a doorway to a world that feels closer to home than the crowded streets outside. The bookseller watches you with quiet amusement, his fingers drumming a soft rhythm on the counter. He knows why you're here. He's seen the hunger in your eyes, the way your breath catches at the sight of a new volume. Historians still argue whether women were truly welcome in these small sanctuaries of knowledge, or if you were always just visitors, allowed to glimpse the world of words but never fully claim it. You think it doesn't matter, because here, in the quiet hush of the shop, you're reminded that the world is always bigger than the walls that try to contain it. You choose a slim volume of poetry, the leather cover soft beneath your fingers, and press a single coin into the bookseller's palm. He doesn't speak, only nods, and you slip the book into the folds of your cloak like a secret. You step back into the cold, your breath a soft cloud in the morning light, and you know that tonight, when the world sleeps, you'll open those pages and let the words pour over you like moonlight. You walk home slowly, your steps careful on the icy stones, and each breath feels like a small prayer. You think of the girl in the library, the sisters in the scriptorium, the small circle of women who've taught you that questions are never small, even when the world insists they must be. You think of the stories you've read and the words you've written, and you know that no matter how many times the world tells you to be quiet, you'll always find a way to speak. Because here, in the hush of your thoughts, you found something worth holding on to. And you know that tonight, in the hush of your room, you'll write again. The day fades into evening. The sky outside your window, bruised with purple and gold as the sun sinks low. You watch the last light slip away, your breath fogging the cold glass, and you know the night will be yours again, a quiet kingdom of shadows and ink, where the questions that fill your mind can finally breathe. You light the candle with careful fingers, the flame flickering like a heartbeat in the hush of the room. You draw your small table closer to the window, the battered wood worn smooth by years of secret scribbles and half-formed dreams. You lay out your notes, the parchment soft and familiar beneath your hands, and you let the hush settle around you like a cloak. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, the night was when the world turned inwards, when the grand halls emptied of laughter and the small rooms like yours filled with the soft rustle of pages and the steady scratch of pen on paper. It was a time of quiet industry, a time when the weight of the day's demands fell away and the mind was free to wander. A small joke flickers through your thoughts. Imagine telling someone that your idea of a perfect night is a candle, a quill, and the echo of your own questions. They'd laugh, maybe, but you know there's a kind of magic in the soft hush of these hours, a kind of power that no dance or feast could ever match. You dip your pen in the ink, the rich black pooling in the nib like a promise. You write slowly, the letters blooming across the page in soft curves and sharp lines. Each word a quiet rebellion against the hush of the world that tells you to be small. You write of the stars and the stories they whisper in the cold night air, of the way a single line of poetry can set your heart racing faster than any lover's glance. Historians still argue whether women like you, women with minds alive and hands that itch for ink, were dangerous or simply curious. You think it doesn't matter, because tonight, in the hush of your room, you're both. You pause to rest your hand, the ache in your fingers, a soft, familiar pain that feels like proof of everything you fought to claim. You look at the words you've written, the pages spread out before you like a map of the hidden places of your mind. You know that tomorrow, the world will ask you to put them away, to hide them behind polite smiles and soft sighs. But tonight, these pages are yours. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that the first word written after midnight carried the weight of prophecy, that it could shape the course of your dreams and your days. You smile at the thought, though you're not sure if it's true. Still, you write carefully, each word chosen like a blessing. The night deepens, the candle burning low, the shadows stretching long across the walls. You lean back in your chair, the wood creaking softly beneath you, and close your eyes for a moment. You think of the girl in the library, her eyes bright with questions. You think of the sisters in the convent, their hands steady as they copy words no one else will ever read. You think of every woman who's ever let her mind wander past the edge of what the world says she should know. Historians still argue whether these small acts of study and scribbling were enough to change the world, or if they were just small ripples in a pond that would always stay still. You think it doesn't matter, because for you, each word is a small act of defiance, a promise that even if no one else ever sees what you've written, you know it's there. You close your book slowly, your hand lingering on the rough leather cover, and you let the hush settle around you once more. You blow out the candle, the last breath of the flame a soft sigh in the darkness. You lie back on your narrow bed, the moonlight spilling over the sill and pooling in silver puddles on the floor. And as you drift into sleep, you dream of words, of pages that glow like stars, of questions that rise like the dawn, of a world that is always just a little bigger than the one you've been told to see. Tomorrow, the world will wake and try to make you small again. But tonight, in the hush of your room, you've claimed your own small kingdom, and you know that's enough. The morning air is crisp as you wake, your breath a soft cloud in the stillness of your small room. You rise slowly, the cold seeping through the thin linen of your shift, and you light the candle with careful fingers, the flame flickering warm against the hush of dawn. You sit by the window, the small desk still littered with your notes, and you let the silence settle around you like a gentle hand. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, the early hours of the day were sacred, moments for quiet prayer, for reflection, for the small rituals that set the tone for everything that followed. But for you, the early hours are something more. They're a time when the world feels soft and new, when the questions you carry feel closest to the surface, alive and eager to be asked. You wash your face in the cold water from the pitcher, the sharp bite of it waking you fully. You see your reflection in the cracked mirror, the soft shadows beneath your eyes, the quiet determination in the set of your mouth. You smile faintly at the sight, though it's a smile edged with something sharper, something that tastes like defiance. A small joke flickers through your thoughts. Imagine telling someone that you see your best self in the hush of the morning, ink smudged and sleep rumpled, your mind already miles away from the day's quiet expectations. They'd laugh, but you know that in this hush, you're closer to the person you're meant to be. You dress quickly, the heavy wool of your gown warm against the chill. You gather your notes, slipping them into the small pouch at your waist, and you slip out into the cold morning air. The streets are quiet still, the lights soft and golden as the sun lifts over the tiled roofs. You walk slowly, your breath rising in small clouds, the world around you waking with a sigh. Historians still argue whether women like you, quiet, curious, determined, were the quiet architects of change, or just the footnotes in a story always written by men. You think it doesn't matter, because you know that in the hush of your mind, you're building something real, something that can't be measured in the grand halls of palaces or the bright chatter of ballrooms. You make your way to the small courtyard behind the house, the garden still asleep beneath the frost. You kneel, your fingers brushing the frozen herbs, and you breathe in the sharp scent of rosemary and thyme. The earth is hard and cold, but you feel the quiet promise of life beneath it, a promise that feels like your own. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that the first breath of cold morning air was a blessing from the gods, a promise of clarity and strength for the day ahead. You smile at the thought, though you're not sure if it's true. Still, you breathe deep, the cold settling in your chest like a bright, clear light. You rise slowly, your hands red with cold, and make your way back inside. The house is waking around you, the low murmur of voices, the soft clatter of pots and pans in the kitchen. You move through it all like a ghost, your mind already turned inward, the weight of your questions pressing warm and steady against your ribs. You slip into the library, the hush of the room a balm against the noise of the waking house. You take your place at the small table by the window, your fingers brushing the smooth wood, and you let the hush settle around you. You open your book, the pages soft and familiar beneath your hands, and you begin to read. Historians still argue whether these quiet hours of study were acts of rebellion or just small moments of borrowed peace. You think it's both, because here, in the hush of the library, with the soft light of dawn spilling over the pages, you feel like you're touching something bigger than yourself, something that can't be taken away by the soft commands of a husband or the polite smile of a mother-in-law. You write slowly, your hand steady, the ink dark and sure on the page. The words flow in small, careful lines, each one a promise to yourself that your mind is yours alone. You think of the girl in the convent, the sisters in the scriptorium, the women who came before you, and the women who will come after. You think of them all, and you know that even if the world never sees what you've written, it's enough that you have. The sun climbs higher, the light turning the small room to gold, and you pause to watch the dust dance in the bright air. You close your eyes for a moment, the hush of the room like a prayer, and you let yourself believe that the questions you carry are enough. And as you write the last line, you know that tonight, when the world sleeps, you'll write again. The day passes in a blur of small tasks and soft voices. the quiet hum of a world that expects you to keep your head down and your hands busy. You move through it all with the calm grace that's been taught to you since you were a child. Eyes lowered, steps measured, your mouth curved in a polite smile that never quite reaches your eyes. But beneath the soft folds of your gown, the weight of your hidden notes presses warm and steady against your ribs, a silent reminder of the thoughts that fill your mind. You sit by the hearth in the late afternoon, the fire crackling soft and low, and you let your hands rest in your lap. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, a woman's worth was measured in the quiet of her manners and the softness of her voice. You know the rules of this world by heart, but in the hush of your thoughts, you're already somewhere else. A small joke flickers through your mind. Imagine telling someone that your greatest ambition isn't to be the quietest woman in the room, but the one whose thoughts are too bright to stay hidden. They'd smile, maybe, but you know that even in the hush of the hearth, you're already writing your own story. You watch the flames dance in the fireplace, the light turning your face to warm gold. You think of the girl in the library, the sisters in the convent, the women whose hands you've watched move with patient grace over pages and prayers. You wonder if they feel the same quiet ache in their chest, the same fierce, stubborn hope that what you hold in your mind is more than enough. Historians still argue whether these small, stolen moments of thought were enough to change the world, or if they were just small ripples in the hush of a world that never quite learned how to listen. You think it doesn't matter, because here, in the hush of the firelight, you feel the soft, steady beat of your own mind, strong and sure, even when the world says it should be quiet. You take up your sewing, your fingers moving with practiced ease over the soft linen, but your mind is elsewhere, drifting to the questions that wait for you in the quiet of the night. You think of the words you read last night, the thoughts that still echo like soft music in the hush of your heart. And you know that even in the stillness of the day, you're never really silent. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that the simple act of sewing could shape the fate of their thoughts, that each stitch was a prayer, each thread a quiet testament to the strength of the hands that held it. You smile at the thought, though you're not sure if it's true. Still, you let your needle dance in the soft light, each stitch a small, silent promise. As the sun sinks low and the light fades to gold, you fold your work carefully and rise. You move through the quiet halls of the house, your footsteps light and your breath slow and steady. You pause at the door of the small, still room, the scent of dried herbs and the soft rustle of linen filling the air, and you step inside. The room is small and warm, the shelves lined with jars of lavender and rose petals, small bowls of honey and oil catching the last light of the sun. You breathe deep, the air rich and sweet, and you let your mind wander. The world outside is still and dark, but here, in the hush of the still room, you feel something bright and alive, something that tastes like freedom. Historians still argue whether these small rituals, these careful blends of herbs and prayers, were acts of quiet rebellion, or just the gentle work of a world that didn't know how to hold a woman's mind. You think it doesn't matter, because here, in the hush of the still room, you feel your mind open like a flower in the dawn. You work slowly, your hands sure and patient, the scent of rosemary and lavender rising around you like a blessing. You think of the words you'll write tonight, the questions you'll whisper into the soft dark, and you know that even in the hush of this small room, you're already reaching for something bigger than the world that waits outside. The night comes soft and quiet, the moon rising pale and bright in the sky. You slip back to your room, the small bundle of notes warm and steady in your hand, and you light the candle with a quiet breath. The flame flickers, the shadows dancing soft and slow, and you know that tonight, like every night, the world will ask you to be quiet. But tonight, you'll write anyway. The candle flickers low in the hush of your room, the wax pooling slow and golden as you lean over your notes. Your breath is steady, your heart a quiet drumbeat in the hush. The world outside is dark and cold, but here, in the soft glow of the flame, you're warm and alive. Your mind, a garden of questions that no one else can see. You dip your quill into the inkwell, the black pool catching the light like a secret, and you write slowly, each word a soft promise in the hush. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance, Italy, a woman's words were meant to be soft, small, whispers of sweetness and song. But you let your words bloom on the page, dark and sure. The quiet weight of them, a rebellion that tastes like honey on your tongue. A small joke flickers through your mind. Imagine telling someone that you measure your worth in ink stains and sleepless nights. They'd smile, maybe, or shake their head. But you know that here, in the hush of your room, each word you write is a small act of defiance, a promise to yourself that your mind will not be quiet. You pause to stretch your hand, the ache in your fingers, a familiar comfort, and you think of the girl in the library, her eyes bright with questions. You think of the sisters in the scriptorium, their quills moving soft and sure in the hush. You wonder if they feel the same quiet fire that burns in your chest, the same soft, stubborn hope that what you hold in your mind is worth the weight of every quiet breath. Historians still argue whether women like you, curious, stubborn, alive with thought, were ever truly free, or if you were always just dancing on the edge of a world that never quite learned how to see you. You think it doesn't matter, because tonight, in the hush of your room, you're not asking permission. You're writing anyway. You pause to light a second candle, the flame bright and soft, and you lean over your notes once more. The words flow slow and careful, each line a small, quiet promise. You write of the stars and the slow turn of the moon, of the way a single question can split open the world and let the light spill in. You write of the soft ache of your own hope, the quiet strength that grows in the hush of the night. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that writing by the light of two candles was a blessing, that the twin flames would carry their words farther than any prayer whispered in the hush. You smile at the thought, though you're not sure if it's true. Still, you let the two flames burn bright and steady, the soft light turning the small room to gold. You pause to close your eyes, the hush of the night pressing close around you, and you think of the world that waits beyond your window, bright and loud, a dance of silks and smiles that never quite feels like yours. But here, in the hush of your room, your world is small and sure, the quiet weight of your thoughts, a kingdom that no one can take from you. Historians still argue whether these small stolen hours were enough to change the world, or if they were just small echoes in the dark. You think it doesn't matter, because tonight, in the hush of your room, the only world that matters is the one you're building with your pen. You write until the candle gutters low, the wax pooling soft and warm, and you close your book with careful fingers, You slip it back beneath your pillow. The weight of it, a promise that no matter how loud the world gets, you'll always have this quiet place, this hush where your mind is free. You blow out the candle, the last breath of the flame, a soft sigh in the dark, and you lie back on your narrow bed. You close your eyes, the scent of ink and candle wax still warm on your skin, and you let sleep take you in gentle hands. And as you drift away, you dream of words, of questions that bloom like flowers in the hush of the night, of thoughts that rise and rise until they brush the edge of the moon. Because tomorrow, the world will wake and try to make you small again. But tonight, in the hush of your room, you've claimed something no one else can see. Morning comes softly, the light pale and sweet as it creeps across your face. You wake slowly, the hush of the room settling over you like a gentle hand, and you breathe deep, the air cool and clean. You rise from your narrow bed, your mind still filled with the soft echoes of the words you wrote in the hush of the night. You stretch your arms above your head, the small crack of your joints, a quiet song, and you smile faintly, the taste of sleep still warm on your tongue. The mainstream fact is that in Renaissance Italy, the day was meant to be bright and busy, a dance of voices and footsteps, and the quiet pressure of eyes that watch and weigh. But you let the hush linger for a moment longer, your feet bare on the cold floor, your breath slow and sure. You dress slowly, your fingers brushing the soft linen of your shift, the heavy wool of your gown. You tie your hair back with careful hands, the dark strands slipping through your fingers like water, and you watch your reflection in the cracked mirror. Eyes bright and sharp, lips curved in a small, secret smile. A small joke flickers through your thoughts. Imagine telling someone that the soft hush of morning is where you find your strength, not in the bright chatter of the day. They'd laugh, maybe, but you know that here, in the quiet glow of dawn, you're stronger than any mask you'll wear in the hours ahead. You step out into the bright day, the sun, warm and golden on your face, and you walk slowly through the waking streets. The world is alive around you. Vendors calling out price, children laughing in the alleys, the low murmur of gossip that drifts like perfume through the narrow lanes. You move through it all with soft steps and a calm smile, the quiet strength of your midnight thoughts pressed close to your ribs. Historians still argue whether women like you, quiet, watchful, live with questions, ever truly belong to this world of noise and color, or if you were always meant to be just shadows at the edges of the grand halls. You think it doesn't matter, because today, in the bright, bustling light, you're carrying the hush of the night inside you, and that's enough. You pause at the market square, the scent of roasting chestnuts and bright, bitter citrus filling the air, and you watch the world move around you like a river. You stand still, your breath slow and deep, and you let the hush settle over your mind like a blessing. A fringe tidbit. Some women believed that the first breath of market air in the morning carried the secrets of the day. That in the hum of voices and the bright shimmer of sun on stone, you could hear the quiet truth of the world if you only knew how to listen. You smile at the thought, though you're not sure if it's true. Still, you let your breath slow, and you listen. You turn away from the square and walk slowly back to your small room, the hush of your thoughts alive and warm in your chest. You slip inside, the door closing soft and sure behind you, and you let out a quiet sigh. You sit at your small table, the light spilling golden over your notes. You let your fingers trace the words you wrote in the hush of the night. Historians still argue whether these quiet hours, these small, stubborn acts of thought, were enough to change the world, or if they were just small lights in the dark. You think it doesn't matter, because here, in the hush of your small room, you found something worth keeping, something that no one can take from you, no matter how loud the world gets. You close your eyes for a moment, the hush settling over you like a soft blanket, and you breathe deep, the scent of ink and candle wax still sweet on the air. You know that tonight, when the world sleeps and the hush returns, you'll write again. You'll let your mind wander past the edge of what you're supposed to know, and you'll find the quiet place where your thoughts are yours alone. Because in this world, this bright, loud, beautiful world, the hush is yours. The questions are yours. And tonight, in the soft glow of the candle, you'll claim them all over again. The hush of the world settles softly now, the day fading to a gentle murmur as the sun slips low and the night rises slow and sure. You lie back on your narrow bed, the weight of your thoughts still warming your chest, and you breathe deep, the air cool and quiet. The candle flickers low beside you, the soft golden glow, a small, steady comfort in the hush. You let your mind drift. The questions that once burned so bright, soft and gentle as they settle into the quiet corners of your heart. You feel the weight of the day slip away, the small tasks and the careful smiles fading into the hush of the night. Your breath is slow and sure, your body warm and still beneath the soft weight of your blankets, and you know that in this hush, you're safe. The world outside fades to a gentle hum, the hush of the night, a soft song that soothes the ache of the day. You let your thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet stream, the soft echo of your questions, a promise that the night will hold them safe until the morning comes again. You close your eyes, the hush of your mind a quiet comfort, and you let sleep take you in its gentle hands. The candle burns low, the soft scent of beeswax sweet on the air, and you know that tomorrow the questions will be there waiting, soft and sure, alive in the hush of your thoughts. And for tonight, in this soft, quiet moment, that's enough. Sweet dreams. Hey guys, tonight we slip into the hushed halls of moonlit libraries and the soft glow of flickering candles, where every whisper is a question, every book a forbidden key. Your fingers, stained faintly with ink, tremble as you trace the heavy tomes stacked around you. Here, beneath the watchful gaze of marble saints and the scent of old paper, you're about to learn why you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it there? Midnight in Paris? Dawn in Florence? I love hearing from you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk softly, the marble tiles cold under your slippers, the heavy doors of the library creaking like old bones as you push them open. The air smells of beeswax and stale parchment, the kind of scent that would send any modern librarian into a swoon. But here, it's the perfume of curiosity, a luxury you've borrowed just for tonight. The mainstream fact is that Renaissance Italy was a land of dazzling culture and tight constraints, especially for women who wanted more than marriage and motherhood. If you're a female scholar in this world, the odds are already stacked against you. Your education is a stolen thing, borrowed from fathers or brothers, or the mercy of convent walls. You run your fingers over the spines of leather-bound volumes, each title a promise and a threat. The letters are Latin, of course. Like an ancient code, you're just beginning to decipher. The script curls in ways that make you squint in the flickering candlelight, your breath fogging the cool glass of the lantern as you lean in closer. You pause to imagine the monks who copied these texts by hand, hunched over wooden desks, their own fingers cramped and aching with every letter. A small joke bubbles up. You think of the modern world, where you just Google these translations in seconds. But here, every word you understand feels like a secret prize, a tiny rebellion against a world that says you shouldn't even be reading. Historians still argue whether women in your position were rebels or just quiet dreamers. Were you a threat to the social order, or simply a girl who couldn't keep her questions to herself? In the dim glow of the library, you suspect it's both. You find a small stool near the window, the moonlight slanting in through diamond panes to catch the faint gleam of gilt-edged pages. You open a book, the leather cover creaking in protest. Your fingers dance over the words, the Latin slowly resolving into meaning like a fog lifting over the Arno River at dawn. A fringe tidbit. Some women in your time believed that learning was dangerous to your health. Too much reading could cause headaches, or worse, drive you mad. Tonight, you feel that tug in your temples, a dull ache as you read too quickly, too hungrily. But you keep going, because the words are too precious to let go. You pause only to blow gently on the candle's guttering flame, watching the shadows of the letters dance across the page. Your lips move silently as you read, a habit learned from the nuns who taught you in secret, behind closed doors where the world's rules couldn't reach. You wonder what the world would look like if every girl who wanted to read could do so freely. You wonder if you'd be here at all, or if you'd be somewhere else entirely, unbound, unafraid. You close the book softly, the echo of the clasp snapping shut like a final word. You lean back, the candlelight flickering in your eyes, and you know that tonight is just the beginning. The weight of centuries presses down on you, but your heart is light, buoyed by the knowledge that even a borrowed library can feel like a kingdom if you're willing to claim it. Your eyelids droop as the final echo of the last word fades. The candle flickers one last time, and you let the darkness settle around you like a warm blanket. For tonight at least, you've survived. Tomorrow, that's another story. You wake before dawn, the cold biting at your toes, even beneath the thick woolen blanket. The soft hush of the early morning is broken only by the faint clatter of a distant carriage wheel, or the muffled chirp of birds daring to greet the first rays of sun. You pull the blanket tighter, but the chill of the stone walls seeps into your bones. It's a small discomfort compared to the ache in your mind, the ache that comes from knowing that today, curiosity is a dangerous luxury. You slip from the narrow bed, your feet padding across the cold floor. The mirror by your bedside catches your reflection, the pale face of a young woman with tired eyes and a spark that refuses to be dimmed. That spark? It's your undoing.